back to a new video. Uh, I will be starting to do what if videos from now on, so don't be expecting all those other what ifs. And as you can see, this time I will be doing a what if called What If Deku was the reincarnation of Meliodas. Uh, how this would start was everything in canon would go the same, but let's say about after the USJ, like before the sports festival, but after the USJ, Uraraka came up to Deku and said, "I'm breaking up with you." Uh, and she was gonna go out with Bakugo. No one really cared about this, and Deku actually went into depression. But in this timeline, let's say All Might figured out that Deku couldn't control it well, so he went up to Deku. I know this is not how it works, but he said, "I want my quirk back," and he plucked it out, and he plucked the hair out of Deku's head, and he ate it, giving him back One for All. And he said that he found a worthy successor, which would be Mirio. And Deku was even more saddened by this, and the worst part was they said that Deku would have to be kicked out of UA because he doesn't have a quirk. And Deku said he doesn't want to be kicked out of UA. So he said that if he does well in the sports festival, or at least gets top 3 in the sports festival, he gets to stay in UA. They would agree because they would think that Deku would not get any place in the sports festival. He would probably lose in the race. And so that night, Deku went home. He cried himself to sleep, and in his dream, he saw somebody. A short person with yellow hair and a sword on his back. He had the same kind of greenish eyes that he did. And he said, "Hi, my name is Meliodas." Deku was surprised. He said, "How did you get in here?" Meliodas said, "You are my reincarnation. I have been dead for around 5 million years." And Deku would be surprised and confused. So Meliodas would explain about his world, about how he broke the curse between him and a girl named Elizabeth, and he would also talk about how he's a demon. Deku would be surprised. He would say, "Does that mean that I am a demon?" Meliodas would say, "Not until you train." Deku would ask, "How do I train if you're in my head?" Meliodas would say, "I would train you." And Deku would say, "But how?" And Meliodas would say, "I will train you in your head for about 20 years, but outside it's only going to be the whole night." And Deku would say, "Deal," and they would start training. Meliodas would teach him about his full counter and his demon powers. Deku would fairly understand it, and he would eventually, tomorrow morning, he would wake up. He would go in, he would go take a shower, do the rest of his days. And eventually the break for from the USJ would end, and they would go back to UA for the sports festival. And once they get there, everybody saw Deku walking in. He was actually smiling. They did not see a worried face, and they thought that he was just confident, but he would lose in the end. So when Bakugo came up to give a speech, he still gave the same speech, but let's skip to the race thing. Uh, when the race started, everyone went except for Deku. Deku stood there and waited. Everybody thought that Deku would lose and would get expelled. Like, no one knew except for Class 1A that Deku would get expelled. So Class 1A thought that Deku would lose and get expelled, while the rest just thought that Deku would lose. The teachers thought, well, he's going to lose anyway, so let's just wait until the end of the race, and then we'll kick him out. And then everything went the same to canon, except Deku wasn't there. And when Todoroki and Bakugo were at the bombs, they kept fighting and fighting. And then Deku said it was almost time. And then Deku said it's about time when they were like near the gates, Deku chose that it was about time, and he started running without using any of his demon powers, just normal running. And Deku passed all of them. Uh, at the cliff, he just jumped right over it. The robots, well, the robots were already taken down by everybody else, so Deku didn't mind. And at when he reached the landmines, Todoroki and Bakugo looked behind them because they heard some explosions, and Todoroki thought it was Bakugo, but then Bakugo was only running. He wasn't using his explosions. So they looked behind them and saw the landmines just exploding out of nowhere. They didn't see anything. And then they felt a gust of wind past them, and they actually fell over. So at the end, everybody saw that it was the kid from last place, at least everybody from the crowd. And then President Mike said Izuku Midoriya first place. Everybody was like, "What?" Bakugo, Todoroki, "What? Teachers, what?" And then they all were like, "How did he get into first place?" But he was at the beginning. So when everybody else passed, Bakugo went up to Deku and said, "Oi, shitty nerd." And Deku looked at him and said, "What do you want, Katsuki?" And Bakugo was surprised. He didn't call him Kachan, but he didn't care much. So he said, "Oi, shitty nerd, how did you get into first place?" And Deku said, maybe I'm just faster than you, Slowpoke." He smacked Bakugo's hand off of him and walked away. Before Bakugo could say anything else, Midnight said, "It's time for the second match." She spun the wheel. It landed on cavalry battle. They took a little break before the cavalry battle, and Deku was nowhere to be seen. But once the cavalry battle started, everybody was choosing teams, and the teams were the same, except Deku. No one wanted to be on Deku's team. Not one person. Because they all thought he was quirkless. Since, even though the other kids knew that, even though the other kids didn't know that Deku didn't have a quirk anymore, they didn't see him use his quirk, so they thought he was quirkless, or it was just the super speed quirk. So during the cavalry battle, no one chose Deku. They said, "What?" Deku asked Midnight if he could be by himself, and Midnight said, "Are you sure?" Deku said yes, and she said, "At least you need someone to carry you." Deku would say, "No problem," and make clones of himself. And everybody would be surprised that he can make clones. And you guys will ask, that doesn't make sense. He can't make clones without the dragon hilt? And I'll say he cannot. So he would summon the dragon hilt, and everybody would think that he's not allowed to use weapons. But then he would make clones and make the hilt disappear, and everybody would be surprised, like I said, and no one would really be sure what happened. So they just went with it. And whenever the cavalry battle started, everybody rushed at Deku because they heard Midnight say that first place has 1,000,000 points. That's why they didn't want to be on his team. So everybody would rush at Deku. Deku would easily just dodge every single one of them. But then when it was time to start, but then Todoroki froze the entire ground. Todoroki froze the entire ground, and everybody was stuck in place, including Deku's clones. So Deku jumped off his clones. All of his clones disappeared, and he used his darkness to create wings. If you remember when Meliodas was going against that one fairy king that was the original fairy king before King was, and the original giant king, you would see that he was able to use his darkness to create wings and fly. So Meliodas used his wings, except not from his arms. Deku used his wings. Deku or Meliodas, he used his wings from the back of himself to fly up into the sky, and everybody was surprised. All the teachers asked All Might, saying that, "Didn't you take away his quirk?" And All Might said, "Yes, believe me, Izuku Midoriya was quirkless before I met him." And they were all surprised looking. And All Might, in his mind, was thinking, All for One must have given him this quirk. And Deku would look down at all of them, and all of them would be mad. So Todoroki would ask Momo. I'm pretty sure that Todoroki had Momo on his team. But Todoroki would ask Momo to create him like a pole so that he can use that to whack Deku down. Momo did, but Deku dodged every single one of them. Bakugo used his explosions to get up to Deku to try and blast him down, but none of the explosions worked. So Deku kept dodging Bakugo's explosion. Bakugo kept trying but failed. And eventually Deku would have gotten tired of this, so he used his darkness to increase his speed and strength, and he went around all of them, leaving just a flash of green and purple. And before they knew it, they all were still looking at Deku, and Deku was twirling headbands all over his entire arm. And everybody would be like, "What?" And then they all checked their forehead to see if they had headbands. They would see that they don't. Deku would land back on his clones, and they would keep running around. Everybody would follow him, saying that they need headbands because they didn't have any. Eventually, Deku would make his clone stop, and the cavalry battle would be almost over, and Deku would have gone to Class 1B, and he would have given everybody in Class 1B at least one or two headbands, making everybody else mad because they saw that Class 1B might have taken their spots. So they tried running up to Deku and taking their headbands, and there was about 2 seconds left on the clock. Deku said this was bullying, and then suddenly time slowed down for Deku. Deku ran around all of them, putting the headbands on every single one of them, and by the time President Mike said one and then stop, everybody was like no, and then Midnight said first place Izuku Midoriya with 1 million points. Everybody was like only 1 million. What happened? And then they would see like I don't have time to name everybody. I just wanted you to know that Deku was in first place. So everybody who made it in canon made it. And time to the one-on-one battles because I didn't care about the others. Let's see. It would be Deku versus Shinso. Shinso would be talking smack about how Deku has such an amazing quirk that he could become a hero, and he's just a cocky bastard. And Deku, since I'm pretty sure that Meliodas is immune to mind control, since technically his in the original his memories got erased. That's why he went back to his old ways. He wasn't mind controlled. So Deku would uh Deku would answer Shinso's question saying that he lost his quirk actually, and this isn't a quirk, it's power. And Shinso would say, "Ha, gotcha." And Deku was like, "What are you talking about?" And Shinso would be confused why his mind control didn't work on Deku. And Deku would say, "Sorry, but mind control doesn't work on me." And Shinso would be scarred, and he would get pissed and try running at Deku to push him out. Deku would dodge every one of them, and to be honest, he would just flick Shinso on the head, sending him flying out of the ring, crashing into the arena wall, making him pass out and very, very injured. So after that, everybody else's match would go the same, and then it would be Todoroki versus Deku. Todoroki would try. Todoroki, let's say that Todoroki never talked to his dad again, so he didn't send that huge ice blast at Sero whenever they were fighting. So Todoroki still has stamina for the ice, and he sent a huge ice blast that he was supposed to do to Sero. He sent it at Midoriya, and it looked like it froze the entire place, and everybody thought that, oh, Shinso already won. Maybe she should just call the match. And uh, Midnight was about to say, well, Midnight started saying, Shoto Todoroki, winner. And then Deku said, wait, hold on. And then everybody saw the ice is starting to crack. And then it broke into about 20 pieces. Because, I mean, eh. And then everybody was surprised. They would be like, how did he do that? Deku would walk right out of the ice, and Toto would be like, "How did you do that? That wasn't even supposed to be possible. Not even All Might could break that much ice." Deku said, I guess I'm just stronger than him." And Todoroki would be mad because he would think that Deku was mocking him, since Deku knows that Todoroki should beat All Might because of the creation thing. So he would just start sending ice blast at Deku, and then Deku would just keep dodging. Shoto would call Deku a scaredy cat for running away from all of his attacks and not fighting back. Deku would get pissed, and he would run right at uh, Todoroki and punch him, not sending him flying out of the ring, but sending him near flying out of the ring. He stopped. He was ragdolling around the floor, and then he stopped near the line. And Todoroki would get up saying, "You bastard." and Deku would walk up to Shoto saying that Shoto should use his fire, and Todoroki would say, "Why should I use my fire? Did my dad put you up to this? Blah 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 blah. Daddy issues, boy." And uh, Shoto would keep talking about this. Deku would say, "I don't even know who your." Deku would pretend like he didn't know who his father is. He would say, "I don't know who your father is." Shoto would say, "The number two hero, Endeavor," and Deku said, "Oh, him. No, I don't know him. I don't really. I didn't even talk to him, to be honest. I just want to see how powerful you are with your full strength because I've been holding back quite a lot." And everybody would be surprised. Even the teachers would be like, "How? What? He was holding back?" And Shoto would start using his fire. But before he would start using his fire, Deku would still give the same speech, saying that it's his quirk, not his father's. And Shoto would light up in flames. Shoto would still do the same attack, and Deku would dodge the attack, and then he would use a little bit of his power using like the demon curse mark thingy, the small one, not the big one, and he would flick his finger, sending enough wind pressure, and that wind pressure sent Todoroki out of the ring, crashing into the arena walls, knocking him out immediately. But not as damaged as Shinso was, because Deku was just walking towards Shinso calmly, but he was inside. He was very pissed because Shinso was commenting on how Deku had an amazing quirk, but All Might technically took his quirk. And every match we go the same except for Bakugo and Uraraka. Bakugo would actually go a lot easier on Uraraka since they're dating. And yeah, so now it's Bakugo versus Deku. Deku would smile and walk right into the ring. And Bakugo would say, "This is where you end, you quirkless dumbass." And Deku would be like, "Dumbass? I thought you used to call me a shitty nerd." And Bakugo would get pissed and charge right at Deku, telling him to shut up. And Deku would just dodge the attack and kick Bakugo, sending him straight up into the air. And Deku would, it would look like he teleported, but he just jumped really fast, and he jumped up and used both of his hands to hit Bakugo, sending him right back into the arena grounds. He would not be passed out, but he would be injured, not too bad, but still pretty injured because like you get sent back to the ground from a hit in the air. That's very painful. And he would get up and charge right at Deku because Deku would be using his demon wings to fly. And while he was flying, Bakugo would charge up a huge explosion like he did in the cannon against Uraraka to blast away all those rocks. He would use that huge explosion at Deku. Deku would use full counter because in this one, full counter would be used against quirks, not magic, since it's technically magic, just only used for one person. So Deku would use full counter, and and then the blast would be sent right back at Bakugo, but not as big. Well, it would be as big, but he wouldn't use the two times thing because he didn't want to kill Bakugo. He just wanted to knock him out. The blast would hit Bakugo, but Bakugo would be injured, not too injured to the point where he would pass out, just injured to the point where he's starting to bleed, and Deku would fly right back down and say that I have won this match and punch Bakugo in the stomach, sending him flying into the wall, knocking him out immediately. And after that, he would walk out of the ring, and some people would come get Bakugo and take him to the recovery girl. And when it was coming to the medal thing, Bakugo would not be tied up because he would still, well, he wouldn't be passed out, but he would know that Deku is better than him now. No, never mind. I'm wrong. He would be tied up. He would be tied up because he's still pissed that Deku won and not him. So he would be tied up in second place. I'm pretty sure that Tokoyami would still be tied up in third place. And I mean, not tied up. Tokoyami would be third place. Bakugo would be tied up in second place, and Deku would be in first place. uh, Ahmad would give the medal to Tokoyami, telling him the same thing. He would go up to Bakugo, give the medal to him, and telling Bakugo that he should calm down his temper and he should try a lot harder to win next time. And when he gets to Deku, Deku doesn't even look at All Might because he's angry that All Might would just do something like that to him. And when that happens, All Might felt bad because he just lost his successor and some respect from Deku. So when All Might gave him the medal, he tried saying, "You are the winner," but Deku wasn't even listening. He didn't even look at All Might. He just walked right out of there, not even caring. So yeah, that all happened. And this is where I'm going to leave off the episode, part 1. This is where I'm going to leave off part 1 of What If Deku Was the Reincarnation of Meliodas. I'll see you guys in the next part, and goodbye.